Good evening. Our top story tonight, Jonathan Taylor is out again. This time it's a thumb injury, and Jonathan Taylor is expected to miss several weeks, which means Zack Moss is about to win some fantasy leagues, or at least get you into the playoffs. Still undetermined whether or not Jonathan Taylor is headed to injured reserve. Taylor is hoping for 2 to 3 weeks. We'll see about that. We've got this. We've got the firing of Frank Reich. The Panthers are starting over once again. Injury updates around the NFL and more on Player Profiler today.
Hey, it's the Podfather of...
Yes, it is unfortunately true. Jonathan Taylor is officially out, underwent surgery on a thumb injury. We don't know if it was a broken thumb. We don't know if it was torn ligaments in the thumb. All we know is thumb injury equals surgery equals out. And we've heard that hopefully it'll be a 2 to 3 week type injury for Jonathan Taylor. That is the hope, but it could be longer, and it especially could be longer because the Colts are still technically in the hunt for the playoffs, but everyone knows the Colts aren't a playoff team right now. They are building something. This is a successful first year under Shane Steichen. If they made the playoffs, that would be great. That would be gravy. But everyone knows that the Colts really aren't in the same class as the rest of the teams competing for the 7th seed. They're not in the same class as the Buffalo Bills, who are somehow competing for the 7th seed, and other teams like that. But Colts, we'll see how things go over the next couple weeks. Maybe they do win out. Maybe they are a real playoff contender, and then Jonathan Taylor comes back because he wants to help his team make the playoffs. Or maybe they aren't. Maybe the Colts are an okay team, a team that has definitely been successful in year one with Shane Steichen, especially after losing Anthony Richardson, a team that showed a lot of flashes. But why bring Jonathan Taylor back early, for a team that's not really a playoff contender and not a contender once the playoffs began? So I believe that the Indianapolis Colts will play it safe with Jonathan Taylor. They just paid him. He signed a 3-year contract extension. So he will be there next year, year after that. He will be there through 2026. And then Jonathan Taylor will reach free agency once again. But why rush him back, right? Why get Jonathan Taylor back on the field early when it's not going to change the direction of your franchise? And so Zack Moss is going to be the guy over the next couple of weeks. Zack Moss, who already had 2 100-yard rushing games. Zack Moss, who even after Jonathan Taylor returned, was still putting in RB1 weeks based on the long touchdown, the short yardage touchdown that he had. Zack Moss was playing well enough that people genuinely wondered, is this a split backfield now? And of course, no, it wasn't. It never was going to be. But that's how well Zack Moss played, that people were wondering, will Jonathan Taylor be ceding snaps to Zack Moss forever now? No, Jonathan Taylor's still the guy. And now Zack Moss is the guy. We saw already that the Colts were trusting him to play 80, 85, 90+% of the snaps were going to Zack Moss. Zack Moss is a bell cow in the truest sense. I apologize to anyone who dropped him based on my advice. Remember, my stance on Zack Moss was, well, Jonathan Taylor is back, and so now he is just a pure handcuff. If there's anyone that could provide immediate upside to your fantasy team, you can drop the handcuffs. And now Zack Moss is providing immediate upside. He's obviously the number 1 waiver claim this week if he is available. Zack Moss is going to be a bell cow for the Indianapolis Colts. He is going to be someone that we can trust week in and week out. 20 touches are just locked in for Zack Moss at this point. I didn't see it coming. We wish Jonathan Taylor a speedy recovery. But for now, it is officially Zack Moss season. League-winning running back Zack Moss about to happen. If you still have Fab, spend 100% of your Fab on Zack Moss if he is available. Crazy how things change, how things stay the same, including the Carolina Panthers. Things are staying the same with the Panthers as David Tepper continues to be one of the worst owners in the NFL and in all of sports. But before we get to that, we've got a word from the Podfather.
Hey, so many ask me, what's wrong with sports books? Why so many of them fail? The answer is simple. They don't innovate. They're just casino sports books on a phone. That's all they've been. There are a few that are doing a good job. We partner with them. Most of them, not so much. Until Bet Openly came along. Bet Openly said, hey, we're going to innovate. We're going to do something groundbreaking. We're going to have peer-to-peer betting in all states, and you pay 1%. When you win, you pay just 1% on your winnings. You heard that right. It's 1%. With code Underworld, you qualify for just that 1% transaction fee on Bet Openly. It gives you ultimate flexibility to set your own lines and browse lines that others have set. Think about it. That's what betting should be. And now that is the reality. BetOpenly.com. The code is Underworld. Check it out. Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from PlayerProfiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
Going to be very, very interesting to see how the dynasty prospects of Bryce Young evolve over the next couple of weeks, over the offseason, because Bryce Young has already gotten a coach fired. And the Panthers, the way they're framing things, the way they are putting things out is owner David Tepper believes that he picked the right quarterback, that Bryce Young is the guy, and that he just hired the wrong coaching staff around him. And so Frank Reich, the head coach, is fired. 11 games is the shortest tenure that we have seen in the NFL since 1978, back when the San Francisco 49ers fired Pete McCulley after just 9 games. They also fire quarterback coach Josh McCown, very surprisingly. You'll all remember Josh McCown was in head coaching talks for the Houston Texans for back-to-back years. The Texans wanted other teams to interview Josh McCown so they could just hire him as their head coach. Finally gets an NFL coaching gig. It's quarterback coach for the Panthers, and now he is fired after 11 games. And so is running back coach Deuce Staley. Deuce Staley was with the Detroit Lions, had some success there, but was granted his release, granted his opportunity to work with the Carolina Panthers. He wanted to be closer to his mom, who has some health conditions, so he wanted to be closer to home. And so Deuce Staley is also fired by David Tepper. Now, this was David Tepper's decision to fire Frank Reich, and he implements Chris Tabor, the special teams coach, as the new head coach, and it was his recommendation to fire Josh McCown and to fire Deuce Staley, which is very interesting. Chris Tabor deciding, hey, Jim Caldwell is going to be the one to have a heavier hand in the offense. Former Detroit Lions head coach, former Indianapolis Colts head coach and quarterback coach with Peyton Manning. Jim Caldwell is a good NFL head coach. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't promote Jim Caldwell to head coach. But when you read into it, The reason that Jim Caldwell is just going to have a heavier hand in the offense and not be the head coach, and it's the special teams coordinator becoming head coach, is because they didn't want any of the offensive coaches to take any focus away from Bryce Young in developing this offense. Everything is about Bryce Young for the rest of the season. Chris Tabor, Jim Caldwell, unlikely that either of them end up with a job with the Panthers after the season. Offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, he's probably going to be looking for a job as well because they're going to hire a new coach. They're probably going to hire a new general manager, though maybe the general manager, Scott Fitterer, does stay because, as David Tepper says, he's happy with Bryce Young, says he's the right guy. And so it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. Jim Caldwell going to have a chance to pad his resume, and maybe there is the off chance that Jim Caldwell is able to do enough with Bryce Young to get a look at being the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers. What is more likely is that David Tepper is going to throw money at some young, hot thing, like he tried to do last year with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, turns the Panthers down, and clearly, rightfully so, based on what we have seen so far. Ben Johnson is still one of the hottest names in coaching. Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, he's now become a hot name as well. And with the Panthers looking to revitalize and build around Bryce Young and elevate the quarterback play, it makes sense that they would target either of those guys. There's talks that they could go after Nick Saban because he did so well with Bryce Young at Alabama. That seems very unlikely that Nick Saban's going to leave Alabama, especially for the Carolina Panthers, who have no draft picks. But it's looking like David Tepper is one of, if not the worst owner in all of the NFL and maybe in all of sports. Fired 2 coaches in his soccer club, fired 3 coaches now for his football club. He has fired Ron Rivera, and then he was replaced by Perry Fewell, the defensive coordinator, who isn't retained. Then they hire Matt Rule. Matt Rule gets fired during the season, and they replace him last year once again with the defensive coordinator, who's now with the San Francisco 49ers. And then, even though it looked like they were finally going to do well under Steve Wilks, it finally looked like they had turned the corner. It seemed like they were investing and believing in what Steve Wilks was telling them. Nope. Going to go out, hire Frank Reich. Oh, well, that wasn't good enough after 11 games. We have decided, get rid of him. Now it's Chris Tabor, the special teams coach, who's probably going to be looking for a new job next year because it's tough once you promote someone to head coach. If they do a good enough job, they start to wonder, well, why am I not getting head coach looks? We saw that with the Raiders and Rich Bisaccia. They hired Josh McDaniels. Clearly looks like they should have hired Rich Bisaccia instead. Replacement for John Gruden. But it's kind of hard to stick around after getting the promotion and then going to a demotion. It just, and then the new coach coming in obviously doesn't want that either, right? Because now there's a question to their authority. There's a backup plan if things don't work out. So Chris Tabor probably going to be looking for a new job next year, but it also could be up to 10 teams looking for a new head coach next year. Adam Schefter reporting 7 to 10 teams are expected to be looking for new head coaches. We've already seen the Raiders are looking for a new head coach. The Panthers are looking to get a new head coach. The Commanders, we know, are going to fire Ron Rivera, so they'll be looking for a new head coach. It's only a matter of time until Brandon Staley's fired, so that makes sense. Bill Belichick is not expected to be back with the New England Patriots. Going to be no surprise at all when the Chicago Bears pick a new head coach. We'll see if they keep the general manager as well. Saints could move on from Dennis Allen. We could see the Bucks move on from Todd Bowles. Hasn't worked out in the post-Tom Brady era at all. Giants are probably not looking for a new head coach, but depending on how things finish out, Brian Daboll could be fired. There's rumors that the Bills could be looking at a new head coach. Cowboys, looking at this point like the Cowboys have performed well enough that Mike McCarthy is going to be back next year. And then the Bengals, if they completely bottom out, is Zach Taylor going to be back? That's 12 teams that I've named. 7 to 10 teams likely looking for a new head coach. We know Raiders, we know Panthers, we know Commanders, we know Chargers, we know Patriots. Other than that, it's a question mark. And one of the teams that I thought could be looking at getting a new head coach, Robert Saleh, New York Jets. It appeared as though Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh could be on the chopping block. Woody Johnson, the owner, obviously understands to some degree, well, we lost Aaron Rodgers, but at the same point, why did we not have a backup plan to Aaron Rodgers? And so people were starting to wonder, is Robert Saleh going to be fired? Are they going to move on from Joe Douglas? It appears not. It appears as though the New York Jets will be sticking with their head coach, will be sticking with their general manager. And the reason for that is that the Jets have Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers came to New York because of Joe Douglas, because of Robert Saleh. These are the guys that sold him on becoming a New York Jet. And so they truly, in NFL circles, believe that it is a lifeline, a lifeboat, whatever you want to call it. Aaron Rodgers is the reason Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas will be back next year, is because he chose them. And Aaron Rodgers has more power than any other NFL player at this point, because if they fire Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers wanted Robert Saleh to say, he can say, okay, I'm done then. I'm not coming back. And so it appears as though Robert Saleh is going to be back. It's not going to be the New York Jets looking for a new head coach, but 7 to 10 other teams. That is a lot of turnover in the NFL. Speaking of turnovers, the Seattle Seahawks were turning the ball over against the San Francisco 49ers. Not a pretty performance. They will face the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football, and it is not expected to be alongside Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker still not practicing. Pete Carroll says he has not seen any progress since last week. He has the oblique injury, and it looks as though Kenneth Walker going to miss another week. There were some rumors, some talk, some speculation that Kenneth Walker was a candidate from injured reserve. Wasn't placed on IR, so we hope there's some progress next week, but no Kenneth Walker, at least this week. Zach Charbonnet, while KW3 is out, plays 88% of the snaps. Zach Charbonnet up against a tough matchup for the Dallas Cowboys, but the opportunity will be there, and we are always chasing opportunity. Zach Charbonnet going to have the opportunity. Tony Pollard, once again, going to have the opportunity. Rico Dowdle has flashed. Rico Dowdle has impressed. He did score a touchdown against the Commanders. Still dealing with an ankle injury, still getting healthier, but this is still Tony Pollard's backfield. And just for some reason, the Dallas Cowboys backup running back is always going to be better. Cowboys probably going to be with Micah Parsons this week, but he did miss practice yesterday, missed practice earlier today. My apologies, with an illness. Does not practice. The linebacker, the edge rusher, the all-around defensive player of the year candidate, Micah Parsons, did not practice today. Probably going to play, but keep an eye on that. Speaking of linebackers for the Dallas Cowboys, Shaquille Leonard, formerly known as Darius Leonard, visits the Dallas Cowboys, leaves without a deal. He is now visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. Going to take some time to decide, shop around, but Shaq Leonard looks like he's going to be back in the NFL. Looks like he's going to be chasing a Super Bowl ring. Bad injury updates around the NFL. It is not all good news. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is in concussion protocol. We will see if he's able to clear it. But remember, more often than not in 2023, if a player suffers a concussion on Sunday, it is probably not going to happen. They are probably not going to play the following week. So DTR likely out with a concussion. PJ Walker would be the starter. Myles Garrett also unlikely to play this coming weekend. Myles Garrett day-to-day with a shoulder injury. He was in a sling after the game. Good news that it's only day-to-day, but as you all know, day-to-day means week-to-week, which means as soon as you're listed as day-to-day, probably not playing this coming weekend. Like Rashid Shaheed is day-to-day with a quad injury, but the Saints admit in the same breath, yeah, he's likely out. Rashid Shaheed probably not going to play. Day-to-day means a player is out. And Chris Olave probably going to be out as well. He is in the concussion protocol. And as we just mentioned, concussion protocol means you're probably going to miss at least one game. It is very rare that we see players enter NFL concussion protocol and then return the following week. Jaguars going to be without their left tackle, Cam Robinson. He suffered a 4 to 6 week knee injury. And so it is expected Walker Little is going to be the left tackle Ezra Cleveland, who they just traded for from the Minnesota Vikings, is going to slide into left guard, which the Jaguars are one of the better and deeper offensive lines in the NFL. I know right tackle hasn't been completely pretty with Anton Harrison, and I know Cam Robinson has had injuries and suspension, not being consistent, but this is still one of the offensive lines that can handle this type of injury and still protect Trevor Lawrence. We'll see how the Jaguars finish out the season. The Ravens are also going to be without David Ojabo for the rest of the season. He suffered a partially torn ACL and is expected to miss the rest of the season after undergoing surgery. But it's not all bad news on the injury front. Justin Jefferson has been activated off of injured reserve. He is obviously entering the bye week. Vikings aren't going to play this week. That's okay. Justin Jefferson, the Vikings take care of Justin Jefferson. And I know Vikings probably win that game against the Chicago Bears with Justin Jefferson, but it doesn't matter. The Minnesota Vikings are thinking long term. They are looking into the future and saying, okay, does a win against the Chicago Bears and possibly making the playoffs this year in the NFC, is that worth the potential downside of bringing Justin Jefferson back too early? No, it is not. And yes, Josh Dobbs has a bad game, 4 interceptions, though they're not all on Josh Dobbs. Still a bad game. No commitment to Josh Dobbs at this point. They are going to evaluate some things. Jaron Hall, the rookie quarterback out of BYU, had a nice couple drives from the Minnesota Vikings before suffering a concussion of his own. Jaron Hall could be the starter for the Minnesota Vikings after the bye, or it could continue to be Josh Dobbs, to be determined. We know that the Bengals are going to continue to start Jake Browning, but Joe Burrow, the actual starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, did undergo successful surgery on his wrist. Expect him to be back for training camp next year. Expect him to have not a full off season. He's probably going to miss OTAs, mini camp type things, but Joe Burrow, expect him to have a full training camp. Hopefully for once, Joe Burrow can have a full training camp. T. Higgins also has a chance to play this week, has missed the past 3 games with a hamstring injury. T. Higgins has had a bad hamstring for the past couple of years. This year, flaring up, misses 3 games. Bucks are expected to have Baker Mayfield. He suffered an ankle injury, underwent an MRI. Looks like he's good to go. Negative, no high ankle sprain for Baker Mayfield, so that is good news. Lions at the quarterback position, and be careful at how you read this, but Hendon Hooker is expected to start practicing, if not this week, within the next week or 2. But he's probably practicing tomorrow. And so that has had people wondering, Hendon Hooker. They just drafted Hendon Hooker. He had a prolific season at Tennessee. He was a first-round conversation guy before he suffered the ACL tear. Are the Lions going to bench Jared Goff for Hendon Hooker? And the answer is no. The Lions will roll with Jared Goff, but it is really good news and really exciting to see that Hendon Hooker is going to return to practice. Now, he's not going to be the backup. Teddy Bridgewater will remain the backup, because you have to remember, you don't get many snaps as an NFL backup. You are not practicing much with the offense. Sometimes you're on a scout team. Maybe you get a couple plays, but quarterbacks during the season hog all of the reps. So Jared Goff hogging all of the reps. Teddy Bridgewater is going to get the scraps because Teddy Bridgewater is the backup and he has to be ready if anything goes wrong. So Hendon Hooker practicing doesn't actually mean anything. He's still going to be quarterback 3. He still has no shot of entering the lineup without 2 injuries to 2 different quarterbacks. But the fact that he's going to start practicing, the fact that the Lions are going to be able to see him in limited capacity, and he'll be doing individual drills and all of that. But this is good news for Hendon Hooker. This is good news for his dynasty value. At worst, he has the ability to prove that he is a true backup quarterback for the Detroit Lions next year, because Jared Goff is going to be back next year. Then we'll see after that. They still have to sign him to a contract extension. But for now, looking like Hendon Hooker going to return, looking like he is going to be the backup to Jared Goff. And finally, for injury news, the Philadelphia Eagles have Dallas Goedert against the San Francisco 49ers. We remember he just broke his forearm just a couple weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago. And he's pushing to play this week against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, it is unlikely, by all accounts, that Dallas Goedert does return. It is much more likely that he returns the following week against the Dallas Cowboys. But that's exciting that Dallas Goedert is pushing to play. This has become a new rivalry in the NFL, the Eagles versus the 49ers. After that injury to Brock Purdy, the trash talk that the 49ers did all off season long after getting whooped by the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were getting whooped even before Brock Purdy got hurt. But excited to see that Dallas Goedert pushing to play. Maybe he does, maybe he surprises us. I'm not starting him unless I have to, because it is the tight end position. Not starting him if I don't have to. And the Eagles also have Lane Johnson, who says he is ready to go. He was listed as day-to-day earlier this week. The one position where I hear day-to-day, and it actually might mean day-to-day, is the offensive line. And maybe that's even just veterans like Lane Johnson. But Lane Johnson, day-to-day with a groin injury, says he's ready to go against the San Francisco 49ers. The Eagles are ready for this game. And it looks as though Quentin Johnston was not ready for the NFL. Quentin Johnston has officially been benched. We saw that he suffered what it looked like an injury and then didn't really re-enter the game. Played very sparingly after that. Brandon Staley comes out and admits, no, that was not injury-related. Quentin Johnston has been benched. Jalen Guyton is officially the wide receiver too. Quentin Johnston, we'll see where he is in the pecking order in short time. But Josh Palmer, one more week on injured reserve, and then he's going to be back. So if Josh Palmer is available in your league, make sure you pick him up and stash him just in case. Quentin Johnston, the experiment is officially over. As for the Arizona Cardinals, they have moved on from Keontae Ingram. He has been cut. Formerly the RB2 behind Amari DiMercado, was actually at one point the RB1 ahead of Amari DiMercado, officially being cut by the Cardinals. Michael Carter playing a surprising amount of snaps. Michael Carter playing just 3 snaps fewer than James Conner. Michael Carter officially the RB2 ahead of Amari DiMercado, which made this move possible. New York Giants say that as soon as Daniel Jones is healthy, as soon as he comes back, he is QB1, which you might believe until they immediately after say they're going to add a quarterback this offseason, possibly through the draft. And it's going to be through the draft. Maybe it's not Drake May. It's not going to be Caleb Williams because they're not going to be picking first overall unless they trade up. And the Bears, maybe the Bears are trading back after what the flashes we've seen from Justin Fields lately. I don't know. The point is that the Giants are not going to be starting Daniel Jones next year. They are going to move on. They are going to draft a quarterback. Maybe the Steelers join them. Maybe the Steelers stick with Kenny Pickett. But either way, the Steelers have their first 400-yard performance on offense since Matt Canada joined the team. They did it before Matt Canada came and became the offensive coordinator, and immediately after 400 yards. Pat Freiermuth has the best day of his career, 9 receptions, 120 yards, both career highs. Congrats to Pat Freiermuth, and congrats to all of the players around the NFL throughout history that have been named a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame. At the running back position, we've got 4 semifinalists, 25 total semifinalists for the Hall of Fame. That 25 will be taken down to 15, which I believe is taken then down to 7, with the potential for 2 master's classes for Hall of Fame. And so Fred Taylor, Ricky Watters, Eddie George, and Tiki Barber. Tiki Barber, who retired in 2006. This is his first time as a semifinalist, which makes it unlikely that Tiki Barber is going to get into the Hall of Fame. The fact that since 2006, retiring, you have to wait 7 years. Since then, Tiki Barber's only been nominated once. Unlikely, but Fred Taylor, 5th time as a semifinalist. He could be looking at a Hall of Fame induction or at least advancing to the finals. Andre Johnson and Steve Smith, both 3-time finalists. Devin Hester, also a 3-time finalist. He is up. And Devin Hester has to get into the Hall of Fame at some point. I know as a receiver, he didn't have the work, but Devin Hester as a returner, he's got to be in the Hall of Fame. Then we've got Hines Ward, Reggie Wayne, and Anquan Bolden. Not sure if any of them are going to make the Hall of Fame. Probably Reggie Wayne over Hines Ward over Anquan Bolden, but they are all in the conversation. And then we get the first-time nominees, the guys that this is their first year eligible, and this is the first year they have been nominated. Antonio Gates has been nominated to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He is a semifinalist this year. And I think Antonio Gates deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Famer alongside Julius Peppers. Julius Peppers, what a career. Chicago Bear, Carolina Panther, Green Bay Packer. I think that was it, but Julius Pepper, first year eligible, first year semifinalist. I think Julius Peppers, Antonio Gates, both very much deserve to be first ballot Hall of Famers. We've also got nominees like Jari Evans, Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis, Jared Allen, James Harrison, who said he doesn't think he belongs in the NFL Hall of Fame, doesn't think he did enough, but he is a semifinalist. Patrick Willis, 5-time semifinalist. I hope this is the year he finally gets in. Patrick Willis, the best linebacker of the generation after Ray Lewis. I know they played at the same time for a period of time, but still. Then we've got London Fletcher at the linebacker position, Eric Allen at cornerback. Safety, we've got Rodney Harrison and Darren Woodson. So if I had to narrow this down, there are 7 Hall of Fame positions that we are looking at. Julius Peppers and Antonio Gibson, first ballot Hall of Famers, lock them in. I think it's time for Patrick Willis. 5 nominations, get him in on the 5th one. Andre Johnson and Rodney Harrison, because I think Andre Johnson is the best receiver. I put Andre Johnson ahead of Steve Smith. So give him the induction, because you're probably only doing one receiver at a time. Then you got Rodney Harrison, who's probably entering the NFL Hall of Fame. Then that's 2 spots left. Steve Smith, Dwight Freeney, Jared Allen, Eric Allen, Darren Woodson, and Fred Taylor. Love the NFL Hall of Fame. Love the fact that all these guys are going to be recognized. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to be entering the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I will see you next time.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.